Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. And so the message this evening is the same as it was the evening before. And depending upon that which my partner does, which will determine that which is then broadcast as an audio transcription. Or I gave it to him last night for the first time so that he would understand. And it would not be a surprise today. And in that there comes a greater understanding and a better wisdom. For the things which we wish to present this evening are new. New to some. But we speak now about a premise that we have not spoken of before. Not in this detail. And one that will then be very, very outstanding to you. Perhaps a bit unbelievable. It is a premise that has to do with physics, but everything to do with you. A premise that has to do with the energy that you sit in now. A few moments ago, when we opened this door, we asked, is the man pretending? And we ask that so that you will have discernment and you will know. For here is a message that will go to the core. Here is a message that is unbelievable to some. And so, because of its nature, we bring you the practical part as well. We fill a little of it with science. A three-dimensional aspect that will anchor that which might sound unbelievable. We present to you that which someday your scientists will see. Some of them are beginning to see it now, not understanding what it could mean, how it works, or what truly is the core. But you can't deny it's there. And in order to do this properly, we will present it in pieces and parts. Here's the premise. That as you open the door to that which is quantum in your science, you are going to discover the first kind of physics that is always benevolent. That is to say, you're about to open a door and look at something which is not linear, which has a bias, the bias of benevolence. Is it possible that there is an actual energy in physics that is biased benevolently? And that doesn't make sense. Because physics is supposed to be absolute. That is to say, there are rules, and then there are rules, and then there are rules. And you want to formalize it, and you used to want to understand that it might be random. We speak about quantum physics as being random. But is it? And if not, why would it be biased benevolently? This is going to sound like science, and it is not all science. We want to give you this information because it ties in with the creative energy that you are experiencing now, dear human being. Difficult to know how to begin. Difficult to know how to explain this in a way that you will actually understand what we are saying. So let us start with this. Your science believes at the moment that quantum physics has to do with the way small particles react. Particles that are so small, they are particles of light, they are molecules of DNA. So small you have to see them under an electron microscope. This is quantum mechanics. And it's only seen there. And now we're going to give you something else to think about. This that you see in the very small also occurs in the very large. And so we'll start there. We're going to start with the premise. The creation of galaxies. And I have said it before that each galaxy in the universe has its own physics. And some of them are very similar, but all of them are different. And if you could know the differences, you'd wonder why, and I will tell you it's because of what's in the middle. Because your physics, 3D and quantum, is determined by what happens in the middle of each creative galaxy. The creation energy in the middle, that bipolar energy, that push and pull, what we have called the twins that are in the middle of your galaxy, which you see in 3D as a singularity, is really double. It determines your physics. And it's different for every galaxy. Science doesn't know that yet. And we give this to you so that when they discover it, you can say you heard it here. It gives credibility to everything else I'm going to say. Let us start with the astronomer. Dear astronomer, do you believe in God? And the astronomer will think for a moment, and the astronomer will say, I am not one to define divinity. And it's not my science. And so you will ask him instead, all right, what do you see that might be interesting to you? And this is where the astronomer lights up and says, all right, I will tell you what is interesting to all of us. We've discovered something we don't understand. There are physical principles in large things that do not apply to orbital mechanics as you have learned them in Newtonian and Euclidean physics. And they will say it's odd to us that the galaxy moves as one plate, almost like the stars were pebbles glued upon it. It all rotates together. There has to be some kind of energy that holds that. For orbital mechanics, as you know them, has to do with gravity and magnetics. Orbiting objects around a fulcrum, which is a sun, seeks its natural place of orbit based upon its mass. Further away, closer together, the speed. Smaller items go faster, slower items go slower that are bigger. That's what your solar system does, but not a galaxy. The galaxy has something in the middle which must be gravity-based, and yet everything moves around it as one. There is a unity there. We don't understand it. But that's not all. Then they will tell you something that you cannot believe. It has to do with what we would call the random factor. So we're going to call this channeling the quantum factor. Something you didn't expect is happening before you. In your three-dimensional reality, everything that happens on the earth seems to be in a random state, and that is to say a bell-shaped curve. If you were to roll a dice over and over thousands of times, you would see this bell-shaped curve, or you would see a consistency of randomness. And that is what you call the way things work. That's what you expect. And there's no bias to it, especially when you would roll dice. You expect to see a certain kind of statistical curve that is random. Back to the astronomer. The astronomer is saying this: everywhere we look at what you would call the creating energy of the universe, that which made the universe, the energy that is responsible for its actual existence, is incredibly biased. It would be like if you rolled a dice and you got 6, and then 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 6. It is beyond the realm of randomness. It shows and shouts there had to be intelligent design. Now, I'm not talking about a metaphysical person. I'm talking about an astronomer. Everywhere they look, against all odds, the universe is benevolently designed for life. They've used the term intelligent design. I use the term benevolent design. And I will tell you that that energy that glues the solar systems of your galaxy together over 100 billion stars is a giant quantum hand that sits upon the galaxies of your universe like the hand of God. A quantum benevolent hand, and they all move together. By the way, if they didn't, they'd all crash into each other. Like your solar system, there would be chaos in the way of speeds, distances, sizes, and there isn't. Instead, it all moves in unity. And the astronomers say it shouldn't. And the astronomers say it's like rolling 6 1,000 times. How can this be? It is the first of many examples we are going to give you. This is the quantum factor, the very creator of the universe. Biased in love, biased for life, biased in benevolence. And here you are sitting in the little blue jewel, that earth that shouldn't actually exist. And the only thing that allows it to exist is intelligent design. How long did it take for science to come to this? An agreement. It's out of statistical probability. Oh, the astronomer still will not use the God word. Intelligent design is as good as it gets. But at least they have been accurate in describing it. A benevolence that is the creator of the universe. Think of that. What does this mean to you? If there is a benevolence in the overall creation of the universe, allowing for life, allowing for this earth to exist, it means that other earths exist. There's life everywhere. We've told you that. However, we sit in a very special one. The planet that is the only planet of free choice anywhere. There's only one in every universe. And there have been other planets of free choice, graduate planets of free choice, then giving the seeds of what they have graduated from to you to continue. And here you are. The creative energy in you has the wisdom of the ages of your galaxy, not of your earth. Others before you, in the billions of years that this galaxy has existed and has rotated as one object, there have been many of these tests all over, and every single one that graduates to a new level of benevolence picks up that quantum energy that is biased in love and passes it to the next planet. It is a long-term deal. And you will do the same. And as you pass this benevolence, it actually shapes the next universe and how intelligent the design will be. It has been around a long time to get to this place where physics can be shown to have an attitude. An attitude of benevolence. That's the big picture. Let's move to a medium one. Let me take you to an experiment over a decade ago. Two men. In Scotland, Scott Strachan, physicist, and a medical doctor, Dr. Todd Ovakaitis, my partner's friend. What a coincidence, they met in this lifetime. Those two men are together. The physicist and the medical doctor come up with something. They are the first team of scientists to develop a controllable quantum event. That is to say, they have an invention that creates quantum energy. They've done it by opposing laser energies out of phase through what we would call a quantum holographic lens. An actual shift of time occurs. And the quantum soup that is in that energy, although it is very small, is controllable. Now, they're not the first humans on the planet to create a quantum energy. They're only the first ones to create a controllable quantum energy. The first human to create a quantum energy was Nikola Tesla. He couldn't control it, but he knew it was there, and he had seen it over and over. But what they did next, and over the last decade, and continuing into the next one, shows the quantum factor. For they then applied this little quantum soup that they had invented to biology. And every time they imbued this energy into a biological test or experiment, they got healing. And what are the odds of that? That you would then develop some kind of an energy on the planet that had never been seen before, and everywhere you put it, good things happen. What are the odds of that? It's like rolling 6 and then 6 and then 6. Are you starting to see a pattern? When this quantum energy is able to be reproduced in other laboratories, there will be those, and there always are, that will try to weaponize it. It'll be the first energy ever discovered that won't allow it. It can't be weaponized because it is benevolent. Imagine a quantum energy that's just simply physics that has an attitude. What does that tell you? There's something going on. The quantum factor will be discovered on this planet. And it's going to fly in the face of logic and 3D and the way things work. All of this may not be seen in my partner's lifetime. And he's all right with that. He's very all right with that. Now, he stands next to me. But I'm going to tell you about him. Because he knows he'll be here. He may even participate. He doesn't care what his body looks like. He just cares that he'll be here. And he will. And I want to tell you, old soul, that at this moment the potentials are that no matter how old you are in this room, you'll be here with him. Because you're not going to miss the finale. The ramp up is difficult. The old souls in front of me have signed on to work. They waited for this energy for lifetimes. Their parents, and I've spoken of this before, came into this planet knowing full well they would have children that would be in this new energy that would have the chance of changing Earth. Your parents didn't. Before they got here, when they had the mind of God, they said, we're going to go in, and we're not going to wake up, and we're not going to understand. We may even be abusive. We may give them a hard time. We may even disown them. But we're going to have them. And we hope they forgive us for what we do in an old energy, but this is what we're doing because we have the mind of God before we get to Earth, and we know that they are going to change things. Do you ever think of your parents that way? I have mentioned this now 5 times in channel. I can't mention it too often. There are those here who need to hear it. Do you ever think of your parents in that light? After what they've perhaps done, now, many of you had wonderful parents, and then there are others who don't want to ever talk to them, and some of them are here and some of them are dead. And I want to tell you that the core soul of all the parents knew of this energy potential. They knew that their job was to have you as a child. Old soul. And this is really going to put time in a circle for you because you stood next to them when they came in. With an agreement, a handshake, a hug. Let's go do it. My partner says that light workers sit before him. All right, light worker, I want to ask you, if you now know what I know about your parents, who's the light worker? I've said that over and over. It's your parents who went through this in an old energy and perhaps never woke up. And perhaps gave you a real bad time. Well, maybe this is the time to forgive everything and see the core inside them, the mind of God that they had to bring you into this earth in a difficult situation. There are those here who were born on different continents. I know who you are who sit here. Even more difficult there for a parent to say, we're going to have a light worker, an old soul. And why were they so sure that this would work? Because they saw the quantum factor, the benevolence of the quantumness that you were beginning to absorb and understand. Quantum energy is just around the corner. That will be the next largest discovery on the planet. It's been held back from you because it takes a higher vibrating consciousness to create it. When any planet discovers a quantum energy and is able to use it, you can go to that planet and know that you will meet high consciousness entities. Never given to you before that. For in the quantum factor contains planetary travel, interplanetary travel, entangled states, ways of doing things you never thought could happen. You can throw away your rocket ships. Oh, how 3D of you. You're on the edge of that. Now let me take you to the very small. Over a decade ago, Vladimir Papoinian, Russian scientist, used light as an experiment with one molecule of DNA. And he discovered a field around DNA. Light patterned itself into a mathematical equation when DNA was around it. He discovered that DNA had a field, a quantum field. Not only that, it was a quantum field filled somehow with information. How else could it pattern light into a sine wave? A field that is quantum, that is filled with information. That came from a quantum biologist, not Kryon. And I follow that up. And I am telling you what DNA is, and it's time for you to know. When the human genome was transcribed, every single chemical in it was seen. The numbers are shocking. For in a molecule so small you cannot see it without an electron microscope, there are 3 billion chemicals in the double helix. The smallest of the small, all of those are quantum. They all qualify. They're small enough. And yet your three-dimensional scientists were looking for patterns. They wanted to know what creates 36,000 genes of the human body. By the way, there's more. I'm using a number of theirs, not mine. And that's all they were interested in. They did not see DNA in a quantum state. They were not looking for that, even though the very size of DNA must yell at that which is logic that it has to be quantum. They were not looking for that. Instead, they counted chemicals. Instead, they looked for codes. And they found them. In 3.5% of the 3 billion, there were protein-encoded parts that made all the genes. 3.5%. Over 90% was random. It did nothing that they could see. Still to this day, even with that information, they do not see the obvious, that the 90% is quantum and the 3.5% is linear. And they have to ask the question eventually when they see it, what is in the 90% that is quantum? And now we get to it, don't we? And I will tell you 100% information, instruction sets for your life. Everything from your higher self, you might say, everything from that to your Akashic record, you might say, every single lifetime, every single talent. Biologically, every single instruction to every single stem cell. That's what's in your DNA. And it's all quantum. Now, I'm giving you this information so that you will understand something that is coming next. In your 3D life, you simply accept the chemicals you're given. And you act as though the 3.5% is all there is. And you take it as a standard that is unchangeable. You don't see it for the way it is designed. Think of DNA as a race car. Think of 3.5% of it as the engine. It always does the same thing, over and over and over, always does the same thing. And 95% is the consciousness of the driver behind the wheel. Only you haven't discovered the driver. And therefore you live with the 3.5% as though it were all that there is. And you never talk to it. Many of you come in with predispositions based upon the karma which is put upon you from your past lives. You don't come in clean. You come in with predispositions, fears and phobias. Some of it is positive. You come in as a prodigy, continuing your last life, the 8-year-old who can paint like a master and do brush strokes that take 30 years to develop. As soon as she can hold a brush. What does that tell you about what must be in the DNA? The composer, the pianist, the prodigy, the violinist, just waiting till their hands can go on the fingerboard and they can reach up and fret the notes. They come in knowing how to play the piano, just waiting for their hands to get big enough to do it without a lesson. How do you explain that, dear ones? It's all in the DNA. And you never talk to it. Let me take you to cellular division. We've said this before. You need to hear this to understand how this works. A cell is ready to divide. It rejuvenates the human body, all tissue. You've been told that there's some tissue that does not rejuvenate. That is incorrect. It all rejuvenates at different speeds, at different times, and different ways. It rejuvenates. You know, the human body is designed to live a long time. Unfortunately, the energy that you have created on this planet and what you've gone through has beat it up. You don't live much more than 80 years. The biblical creatures that you call human beings, that were sometimes prophets and sometimes masters and sometimes just there, lived for hundreds of years. Did they really, or is that just a metaphor? Did they get that right in the Bible without a mistranscription? I'm going to tell you the truth. It's very accurate. Thousands of years ago, you lived a very long time. Lemurian, if you knew your lifespan, you'd gasp. But not anymore. Instructions have been given literally by the energy of the planet that you live in. A cell divides. Right before it divides, it needs the blueprint. The blueprint is available from the stem cell. The stem cell gets its information from the quantum part of the DNA. It's never changed since you were born. It's remained static. Nothing has ever changed it. And you don't believe it's changeable. There's not a conscious effort to do anything, and it just lays there like it always did. And it talks to the stem cell and says, do the same thing you always did. The stem cell talks to the cell that is dividing, saying, make another one just the same. And you rejuvenate just like the last one. And now I'm going to give you a secret. There's another quantum energy on the planet that has the quantum factor. A benevolence. And that is new. And you sit in now a revolutionary change, and some of you are aware of it and feeling it, and it's called a shift of human consciousness, and it's shifting into the quantum factor. It is becoming benevolent. And it is why you're seeing this earth react the way it is. You're starting to see those who will not allow the old systems. You will not have dictators anymore. They want control over their lives. They don't want war. They want their families to be safe. And you're seeing it over and over in these places that have had dictators for years. The question was asked, when will Africa be included in this? A benevolent revolution, and I will tell you, the next generation, and guess who's going to be there to make sure it happens? The man in the chair. And he's going to have black skin. And he's going to be right where he needs to be. And he can hardly wait. 75 years from now, he'll be there. Ready to go. And he's not going to be a channeler. And there's no way to prove that, is there? And he won't know who he used to be. He'll just know what he's supposed to do. There's going to be a healed Africa by then, ripe and ready to develop one of the most abundant and filled with resources continents that this planet has ever seen, without any history that is political. They don't have to unlearn anything. They can start from scratch. They can take the best of any system that they've ever seen and build it. Africa will become one of the most abundant continents in the world. And by the way, they're going to have one currency. And you say, well, what about China? They're awfully large. Look at what they've done. Look at what they have to unlearn. Africa will only have the history that you see today. Sickness, dictators. All of that is going to change, and he'll be there. And how do I know that? Because that's what he's agreed to in advance. In a quantum state, the quantum factor is benevolent, and he knows it. Synchronicity is benevolent. Did you know that? If you wait for synchronicity in your life, God is never going to give you a snake when you ask for an apple. We've told you this before. This is benevolent energy on the planet working in synchronicity for you. Did you ever wonder how energy can be developed like this? And it loves you, and it has an attitude. Here's what you should know. In this shift of human consciousness, you're starting to receive the quantum factor in human consciousness. Human consciousness is starting to have this quantum factor. That is to say, it is becoming benevolent. And that means as you are now able to interface with another field, a field around you called the Merkaba, which is your DNA, you have one confluence of quantumness interfacing another. And I don't know if you know what that means in physics, and I will tell you. And that is this, that what you think, you create. And the first thing you're able to do is rewrite your DNA. How'd you like to live another 100 years? And you give me a 3D answer, and I just heard it here, and your minds are going crazy. I don't want to look that way. It's bad enough what I look like at 90. Oh, 3D of you. Earth won't support it. The population will be too big. Oh, how 3D of you. What if, just what if, you became wiser as well? What if you started to control that which is your population and the use of the Earth's resources? What if you stopped using up the resources of Earth and depended upon the ocean for power, as we've told you? What if you decided to dig a hole and make steam out of the heat that's below your feet instead of building a nuclear reactor? For a nuclear reactor is the world's most expensive steam engine. That's all it is. It makes steam. And there's lots of ways of making steam that will not then hurt one animal or one molecule of air. And it lays there ready for your discovery. And I'll tell you, you're there. You're almost there. You can rewrite your DNA. Now, you're not thinking like I'm thinking, because I'm going to tell you what's in your DNA. It's the consciousness that you have at the moment that actually controls that which you think, your attitude, your human nature. So let's just go for it. There are those in this room that need to hear this. Who is it you won't forgive? Who is it you think has etched into your life something you can never forget, and that you wake up every day with it? I know who's here. Etched into your life. And when a cell divides, let us call it a brain cell, it asks, the same or different? And it goes back to the stem cell for the blueprint, and the stem cell goes to the DNA, and it looks, and oh, would you believe that? The DNA has another instruction set. It's becoming more benevolent. It's more peaceful. Look at that. The event which caused that groove of horror that can never be forgotten is gone. And it talks then to the stem cell, and the stem cell then gives that print to the cell that is dividing, and it says different, not the same. And a new cell is created in your mind that has a new blueprint. And so you might say that what you're going to do in the future has changed your past. And there it is. How much more quantum can you get? Are you paying attention? You can rewrite anything. That's the power of the human being. In this new energy, all souls will pick it up first. It's the old soul who's going to start changing, and people will see it in your human nature, and they'll say, what have you got? I want it. You don't ever have to give them a Kryon book. You never have to say one word. They watch you work with other human beings. They watch you love others who are unlovable. They watch you care about people who you could never care about. And then you start to see it in areas you never thought you'd see it. Politics will begin to change. The way you do business starts to change. What you expect of each other becomes benevolent. Oh, there will always be those unbalanced. There will always be that which you cannot control. There will always be humans. There will always be ones that land in prison. There will be those who come to the planet for the first time, haven't got a clue what to do. Do everything wrong, seemingly, just like you did. There is a lineage in the room, not just one of many lifetimes, but one of wisdom that brings you to the chair. And the questions you ask about civilization and earth are wise ones. When are we going to learn the lessons? You say, well, you have in order to have asked the question, haven't you? There's a wisdom pool sitting in the room that is enormous. Don't you feel it? And so, dear human being, you start talking to your DNA in a benevolent way, and you say to the stem cells, you say to the all that is, you say, why don't we have a situation where the telomeres don't shorten every time the cell divides? Oh, the information goes to the stem cell, and the stem cell is queried by the cell that is dividing, and the telomeres are there, and they don't shorten. And therefore, the one that is produced doesn't age. And you youth. And that's the truth. You start to return to an energy that you thought you'd lost, where human beings are allowed to live longer and can live longer, and it doesn't destroy the environment. They don't overcrowd themselves because they can control it through their minds and through wisdom. How many children to have? What is appropriate? What works in the society? What is beneficial to all? The quantum factor. Someday you'll meet them. They're here now. You've got Pleiadian brothers and sisters who live a very, very long time in a graduate situation in a planet that went through the test just like yours and came out with a quantum factor. They have benevolence. They have quantum energy. That's how they get here instantly in return. And they'll never interrupt your free choice, and that's why they don't land and say hello. Instead, they sit and cheer on the sidelines of what you've finally done. You don't know how close you are to changing everything. If you look at the planet over the last 50 years, you have to see it. You've changed human nature. You look at some of these countries that have low consciousness and low dictators and what they're doing, and you can't believe it. And the rest of the world rolls their eyes and say, what is this barbaricness? That's a wise earth that can see who they used to be. Human nature is not static. And now I've given you the secret, old soul in this room. I want you to start using that which is your higher consciousness to talk to your bodies every day. What is it you want to start with? What have you come for? There's healings that need to be done in this room. Will you accept them? Will you accept them? And if there is a resounding yes from those who know what I'm talking about, I want to give you the invitation to imprint right now with all of us permission to change. And get out of that 3D attitude that you can't change anything biologically in your body. Have you ever heard of spontaneous remission? Do you know what that is? That is a human being who has gone into a state where they actually have rewritten the stem cells in their body to the extent that their immune system is able to carry out something that is called apoptosis at 100% virility. And what I mean by that is that there is a process in the human body that will recognize invaders and sick cells and destroy them. They call it cellular suicide. The cell knows it's diseased, and so it stops functioning. Did you know you had that? That is spontaneous remission, only through old energy and eons of unpractice. You've forgotten how. And so you get the cancers, don't you? And all the other things that attach them to your body and grow. Isn't it odd? We've said this before. Isn't it odd that your body won't even tell you what it's doing? And you've got to go to a guy in a white coat to find out. Isn't it time that stopped? You need to start communication. You need to listen to the intuition. You need to talk to your body every day. Are you okay? What can I do? What would you like? Let's start rewriting the DNA to live a long time. Let's shorten the telomeres. Let's start with high consciousness and how we react to anger. Let us imprint our DNA with the benevolence of God. Let us take the hand of the higher self and finally learn what is in the gradient layers that gave you. You haven't opened that bag yet. And it lays there, and it's been there for over 100,000 years, waiting for you to discover it. And when you do, and when you know, you'll visit another planet, and you'll give them the seed over benevolence, and you'll have peace on earth. I wouldn't tell you this. I would tell you this unless you could look at it and see it's happening. Before we close, dear ones, we'll say this is a slow process. We've seen it before. We've told you before. It happens through generations. It happens through children of the children of the children. It is not anything that you're going to see in a flashbulb experience. There may be some things that move backwards for a while before they move forward, but if you look at all that is together, a slow ship where the rudder of wisdom is steering toward a time when hatred will be something you don't know about. Because quantum energy is benevolent. And that is the truth this day. That is the energy this day. That are the potentials that I see this day. And that is why we bring you this message this day. Go from this place different than you came, knowing more about who you are, what you've done, and what is before you. And I'm Kryon, in this entourage, lover of humanity. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. I sit in a place that is known. That is to say, known is that those who are here are known. I have known them forever. Forever is a circle. A beautiful ring without a beginning or an end that represents the creative energy of the universe. And the pieces of those creative parts are partially here. And this is what I wish to speak of in these few moments together. Sometimes there are channels which have a great deal to impart. I've got some specifics to give you, but they are known by my partner, even some of them, in his series of lectures. But some of you need to hear it from me. Oh, dear one, there is purpose in your life. And some of the struggles that are here, the ones that are listening and reading in this room before me corporally, it's about shift. And the frustrations that you may have this day, the misunderstandings that you may leave with this day because you didn't necessarily grab on to the perception of a multidimensional part and being, all of these things won't matter. Because what is coming is an increased awareness of a part and a piece of the human being that we rarely speak of. We've talked about the grids changing. We've talked about the recalibration of knowledge and self. We don't often talk about what is really truly going to change that is a core issue in the human. You make assumptions as we move forward that your reality does not move forward, that you've got to accomplish all of the things that we discuss in an energy that you have been in. And we tell you this is not the case. You are turning a corner. This corner is a slow turn, but it's a corner. Dear one, you're already starting to see young people born that are different than you. And if you could measure their DNA chemically, you would see the same set of chemicals you've always seen. So something else is changing, and I will tell you, it's in the DNA, but it's not seeable, for it is quantum, it is multidimensional. The very imprints of the DNA efficiency level are increasing, and that creates a human being who thinks differently. A precursor to human beings who will be born with an instinct that will not create war. That's just the partial of it. I want to tell you what is really, truly, potentially going on. With free choice, you have agreed to turn this corner, and we are seeing you do it. It's been too long without a war, a really big one, you might say. Oh, there may be small ones to come. You can count on it. But the one that everybody expects is not going to happen. The doom and gloom that you've been told about economies falling over, about all of these things that potentially are in your face. Don't be shocked and surprised when some of the wild cards appear and things get better. It's interesting, isn't it, what happens when things get better? Nobody talks about it. But if they get worse, everybody talks about it. Now that is a human nature attribute that will also change. Now this is not new news. This one is a summary, and then I'll get on to the new. And the summary states that the human nature is going to be more attracted to light than dark. Get ready for it. A whole shift in what you want to watch in your entertainment. What you'll respond to. What those who will sell you things you call commercials will create for your interest. How politics might start to move. Come a day when you come back and you watch the commercials today that you have for politics, and you will cringe. Because they're drama-driven, fear-driven, even hate-driven. Can human nature change that much? We told you you are in the process of this. Now, what we're going to tell you is that in the process of a recalibrating human being is attitudinal change. But more than that, you're going to have to change communication with Spirit. And so we start to tell you what is going on that is under the hood between you and I. Old souls are going to see it first. Old souls are going to start to experience things. The communication with the Akash is going to be fearful for some. For you're going to start dreaming very real dreams of who you've been. The Akash comes to the surface as the multidimensionality of a human being becomes more active. What we are telling you is that your past lives' experience start to meld with your current life in ways that you have to understand so that they don't frighten you. That's one. And so the admonition is, do not be concerned or frightened if you start to hear and see and feel who you've been in a very real way. This is communication, you with your higher self. For the higher self is the one who has been there for every past life. The Akashic record in your DNA heats up, you might say, and the soup starts to boil. And the vapor that it creates, this is metaphoric, spills over into 3D, and you feel things and you wonder about the appropriateness of things. Expect it. Old soul, this is for you. I'm talking to you. Number 2, you're going to start having a more succinct relationship with the subconscious. That is to say, the intelligent part of your body, which we have called innate, is going to start contacting you in a better way. Don't be shocked if you don't have to do kinesiology ever again, old soul. If your intuition starts talking to you about what your body needs and it never did before. This is all part of what you are creating in a DNA that works better than it did the last generation. The children of today are having an attribute that you did not. They're thinking more conceptually, and that is going to create systems you never thought of. These will be systems you're going to need that you never had before, because they're going to be able to put together unequally yoked entities. I will leave it at that. But just to say, you're going to need this, dear ones, for peace on the planet. Putting together unequally yoked entities. Call it countries or consciousness or culture or religion. You can make it up if you want to. I'm just telling you, there are systems that are going to work, and you never thought of them. That is a conceptual mind at work, not a linear mind. That's just one item. You're already seeing that in the kids. Grandparents, isn't it interesting how your grandchildren are trying to put together things for your children? And you know what I'm talking about. They're trying to solve the family problems, and they see things that their parents don't. They see it clearly, and their parents don't, because they're conceptual. They can see through falsehood because they're conceptual. They're not led down a linear path where they make a left or a right choice. They see it all at once. Your innate is going to start talking to you clearly if you're listening to something which we have always called your intuitive mind. Now, intuition has an attribute that most human beings don't like, and that is to say, it seems to be fleeting. It comes in a flash and it goes away. It does not linger. It does not explain itself. And the human being is used to something that comes and sticks around. proves itself, honors itself, explains itself. And then you go, okay, I'll listen. But intuition does not do that. You get an intuitive flash, a thought for a moment, and you tend to discount it. Now, your innate is going to start giving you information about your own body in flashes that only you will understand, for it is specifically unique to every single human's path. I cannot give you a generic answer to anything, but your intuition will. And this is going to start happening automatically without you asking, and that may be irritable. Imagine being awakened in the middle of the night by your intuition. And then asking, what was that, as you try to go back to sleep? Expect more of it. You're going to have to start honoring that flash and learning to decipher what it says. In a quantum state, you do not have the linearity of something that comes and presents itself in a way that you like for so many seconds so you can analyze it. Instead, it's going to be presented in such a short amount of time you'll wonder if it was even there. Intuition. It's a thought group that presents itself to you, that is an instruction set for you that gives you what's ahead if you listen. For what is ahead is based upon potentials that are known. Not future telling, not a psychic ability, but an analysis that is quantum. That's what you're going to start getting. You'll know what is around the corner before you get there, because your intuition already knows it. Because in a quantum world, that knowledge is set and known as the strongest potential that will occur. In a three-dimensional world, it is a total and complete mystery. So communication is going to start increasing between that which is the quantum self and the linear self. You're not going to like it. Not all of you are going to like it. Because it's going to present itself in times when you didn't ask for it. And it's not going to be there when you do. Now, why would such a thing be? You're going to have to get used to this, dear ones, that the quantum parts of you do not have a clock. They do not respond to timing as you want it to be responded to. So how do you work with this new attribute that's going to start occurring? And what will it feel like? The instructions are these. Understand it's coming. That there will be something that would appear to be unbalancing that your brain is going to do for you in a new way that you're not used to. A new kind of communication with your subconscious. Here's what you need. Here's what you should do. Don't trust that person. Don't go over here. Turn left. Turn right. It's always what you wanted. Believe me. It's always what you asked for. But you're going to have to learn to read it. The children of tomorrow are going to come in knowing how to read it. And that brings up a subject which is probably the most difficult to ever have tried to explain to humanity. And that is how the communication of self works. There's something you have called synchronicity. It is the trust that when you put out intent, Spirit hears you, and that somehow magically there will be those you will meet in the future who will have answers to questions that you have today. That things will be magically moved around and put together in ways that you have asked for or not ask for, but which were better than you asked for. And you'll have no idea how it's going to happen. And you trust it. And you should. For this is the new communication. This is the way of it. It won't make sense in linearity. It never does. How can you know what you don't know until you know it? But you can trust you'll know it. Do you see? You can have the energy of co-creation on things that you do not know are coming, but you can trust in the fact that they will come, even without knowing what they are. Now, I want to give you some information that my partner has taught in the past, and I want to make it very clear. And many of you will not like this, because it is not what you were told in basic metaphysics. It starts to explain that which is around you, you call guides and angels. And I'm going to give you some information. You can call them whatever you want, but they're not what you think. I'm now going to explain the engine of synchronicity. I'm going to do it quickly so that you can review it slowly. And here is the truth. When you stand on the other side of the veil with me in the wind of birth, you are a piece of God. You have a light that cannot be understood, a multidimensionality that's playing, that shines like the sun. The brightest light you've ever seen in 3D is what you look like. Beautiful, with your name ringing in light with colors you can't imagine, vibrations that don't exist on the planet. That's who you are. And then you come into the planet, and you're not. Now I'm going to use some 3D logic with you to try to explain something that is unexplainable. What happened when you got here? Where's the rest of you? It's true you have the Merkaba, named by Elisha when he saw Elijah's ascension. Elijah turned into the piece of God he was and blinded Elisha with the light. That's who you are. The bottom line is you're not all here. What happens when you come into this planet, dear one, is that you split. Only part of you comes down. There is what we would call the tether, a multidimensional cord, perhaps, that is silver, if you want to imagine it, that is the portal that connects your higher self in your body to the rest of you on the other side of the veil. Not in the sky, dear ones. The other side of the veil. So you are in communication at some level with that which you left on my side. I want my partner to explain this better. When you come into the planet, dear ones, only a part of you comes, and the rest stays with me. Not with me, but part of me, because I am also part of the soup of the creative energy you call God. We're not isolated into boxes as you see in 3 dimension. We're part of the creative soup of all that is. You call me Kryon. You want to put a face, skin and wings perhaps, give me even a color. Oh, how 3D of you. I speak for the group, the family that you belong to. And I would like to tell you that I sit in a place on the other side of the veil with you, because a lot of you is here. You had to leave it behind. Here with me. The corporeal you is only a part. Now you would understand this. If you were to take on the full complement of your creation, you would vanish. You know that. So what I'm telling you is you're in 2 places at once. But now it gets bizarre. Part of you comes in with you into this planet and splits out to become multidimensional and follow you around. These are called guides, and they are you. And you are loving them. You're in love with your guides. Now you know why. They're you. You give them names, perhaps. You even change them. Do you know what the guide change is all about that I told you about 22 years ago? Do you know what the guide change is really about? That's a refreshing of you. It's so different when you go through this refreshing process. It's almost like, in your terms, you rebooted your computer and you got new parts. So refreshing is it that your guides look different. They're not. They're still you. But they're vibrating at a higher level. And so are you. I'm giving you the mechanics of what I'm about to call the synchronistic engine, and I'm not even there yet. So here you sit, human being, the corporeal you. Part of you is on the other side of the veil. Part of you is in your body, the part that you see in the mirror. You've got the higher self, which is the multidimensional soul part, and you've got the guides, which are the other part of you that split out when you came. That's quite a family of you. And that is the multidimensionality of the soul. It's in many places at the same time, just like God. Now, what are we going to do with this next? I will tell you. Now you start to become multidimensional, and you put together something we will call intent with an energy. That's an energy of confluence. Intent is an energy of confluence. That means it goes someplace, melds with something, and has action. It's just not a thought that you throw into the clouds, if you didn't know that. It goes somewhere and does something. And here comes your intent. And the intent goes like this: Dear Spirit, I wish to have the solution to the problem in front of me and the ones to follow that I don't even know about in ways I cannot conceive. And I trust Spirit for this. Blessed is the human who has the courage to do that. Instead of saying, Dear Spirit, here's what I need. I need you to do this and that. That boss that I have, get rid of him. I need to have more money. I need to pay this. I need to do this. Oh, how 3D. Spirit may have something a whole lot better than that. Dear Spirit, I trust in synchronicity. I am going to have things come at me because I'm going to get out there and check, go to meetings, go to places. Listen to my intuition, which is new and is going to help me and work with me. Pay attention to my dreams so that I will be in the right place at the right time to have those meet me who I don't know yet. Now that is a light worker. And I am just going to tell you how this works. So get ready. The intent goes out, the confluence of energy is seen, the meld is created. And the pieces and the parts of you that are on my side of the veil meet with the pieces and the parts of other human beings, all of whom are there with us. You do understand, do you not, light worker, that every single human being on the planet has part of them on my side of the veil, just like you do. It doesn't matter if they're enlightened or not, if they're old souls or not, they still have part of it with us. And if you get my gist, they're on my side of the veil where all is known. Therefore, they're in the program with you, even if they're not when they're on the earth. Did you understand that? The one who is the sand in your oyster, the one that's giving you the most problems, the one who creates the energy which you feel is dark, has a piece and part of them on my side of the veil that isn't dark, and responds to the confluence of your intent, putting them in the right place at the right time to help them and you because you gave intent. I'm giving you the engine of synchronicity, which actually will be peaceful on the planet and is going to bring you energies you don't expect, and this may be cryptic, but I am telling you that the pieces and the parts on my side of the veil is what creates synchronicity because of what you do here. The guides around you push and pull you and get you to the right place if you listen to them. That's how it works. You got a whole team of you working for you. It's not magic. It's not God pushing buttons. It's you working with the others around you. It's family working with family. So what I have just told you is that all humanity works for you. The old soul has the information, the energy to change the crystalline grid, understands about intent, and is the engine for the planet. 1/2 of 1% of the planet is going to change all the planet, because what you do here with your intent, all of the souls on the planet, 7 billion of them on my side of the veil, are working for you. How about that? I've just given you the answer of why things are not going to turn out the way you're told they're going to turn out. Because the 3D engine of doubt and fear and trauma is not going to survive. Not when the old souls give intent. That's new. This is the information we're starting to expand on. Many won't understand what I just said. You're going to have to listen to it again. You're going to have to visualize it. And when you do listen to it again, and when it's taught again, shut your eyes and let us give you the picture of what it's like for you to have the tools at your command to create synchronicity that will then create peace on earth. It's not working in 3D. It's not what you think. None of the rules apply that you thought should apply. You're now becoming far more multidimensional, where there is no time, there is no distance. And things are going to work in a way that will shock you. Shock you in their purity, in their goodness. And you will look back someday on these days and realize that this is the renaissance of humanity. Meanwhile, it's not going to happen immediately. Meanwhile, you're here to work. Meanwhile, slow, uncomfortable change. And that is why they call it work. But I just gave you where it's going. I want you to hear this, because you're going to be part of it, now and later. I bring you these things because these are the highest potentials of the planet at the moment. Struggle, drama, old energy that doesn't want to die, leaders who will hold their ground even in death, coming soon. Shocks of where certain countries will go with their new leadership that no one thought they would go to. The wild cards are starting to occur, and it won't be anything that you ever saw in old prophecy. Congratulations, dear one. You stand on the precipice of something that you could only have dreamed about. And if you don't see it right away, you will. We have no clock. I can't tell you when. Free choice may beat it up for a while, but the potential is so strong. You're going to want to create it. And if you don't, your children will. And if they don't, their children will. And this is why we celebrate you and wash your feet. And now you know. And so it is.